Hello everyone. Let's reset. What does reality look like? Some of us need to answer this question crystal clear. We do not wish to delude ourselves or live in fantasies. But, I insist, do we really know what reality is like, or do we only have representations of it?
In the previous video, it was explained how the model of the various territories of the world allows me to construct a standard to assess, and thus to respond in a simple and easy way to questions such as: what is good? What is right? Is this water safe to drink? Is this chair well constructed? Etc. All answers are a function of a model of the world. If the model does not work, do I have to change it? Of course. If I use a faulty map, I get lost. I become disoriented, shipwrecked. I can even become miserable and unhappy. We all live in the same reality, but in spite of this, we do not see or feel it completely, fully feel it, because there is no reality but perceptions. And from these perceptions we make our model, that is a map that interprets reality. And the map we use can have many errors, because it was built using fantasies and desires. We have to take the reality as it is. Do not alter it, because the map will not be true to the territory. And as I mentioned before, we may not only get lost, we may capsize. There are no facts, only interpretations. The fact is that the event can be interpreted differently, according to the lenses through which it is seen. But everyone has their own ability to interpret, or, as it happens commonly, it does not interpret anything at all. That is, they only handle the maps of the world that they have been given from an early age. These models never question them, nor do they explore them. But then they go around complaining about that this tool does not work for them. This is when it is necessary to change your model of reality. And one has to build or find the best map that represents the real, without interpretations. We currently handle a wide range of models, such as models of the atom. Leucippus and Democritus, Greeks of the 5th and 4th centuries BC, were the first to imagine an atomic model. Leucippus said that small particles could be obtained, which Democritus, his disciple, called atoms, a word meaning indivisible. Dalton in the early 18th century took up the principles enunciated by Leucippus and Democritus. He reaffirmed that matter is made up of particles indivisible and indestructible called atoms, and that in chemical transformations atoms rearrange themselves. No atom is created or destroyed. But later, Thomson, in 1897, he discovered by means of explorations, the existence of the electron. In 1911, British physicist Ernst Rutherford discovered the existence of the atomic nucleus. And the model improved over the years. Later, in 1913, Bohr improved the atomic model by highlighting the fact that the electrons rotate in orbits. What is important here is to highlight how the image of this territory of reality is best done through exploration. And the old maps are discarded by the new ones. DNA models. The history of chemistry models is fascinating. And it progressed quickly. But until the 1950s nothing was known about the molecular structure of genes, i.e. DNA. In the early 1950s, the American biologist James Watson and the British physicist Francis Crick proposed their famous model of the DNA double helix, which has been verified. The discovery was made possible by exploration on the crystallographic structure of DNA by Rosalind Franklin. Models of the solar system. Peering beyond reality. Going beyond the known models. This can be done by there are many paths, and some are closer to reality than others. The way that some people take up their transcendent quest consists in to find interpretations that lead them to glimpse truths far removed from common experience. Model changes are traumatic and surprising in their own right. But seeing reality differently provokes fear and dread in others who are content with the models they are given. People who are not used to exploring. Giordano Bruno dared to improve his model of the world. Walked through a door, observed a complex celestial machinery. He found that interesting was like peering into a new model of knowledge. He was one of the most restless and indomitable spirits in 16th century Europe. He challenged the models of the world of the time, created by authority. Model that asserted that the Earth was the center of the universe. The model of that time was called the geocentric model. That said that the planet Earth was the center of the universe, but Giordano explored the world. He learned about the new astronomy of Copernicus, who showed a new model of the world in which the Sun was the center of the solar system and not the Earth. In the real world, he claimed, was the Earth revolving around the Sun. Such a claim could not be tolerated by the authority. The meaning of the whole reality of the ecclesiastics was shaken, for they considered the Earth, not the Sun, was the center of the universe. In this way, Bruno's mind began to germinate some very daring ideas, came to argue that we live in an infinite universe full of other worlds, where beings similar to us could have their lives. Bruno did not doubt his claims, and what was to be expected happened. When he was interrogated by the Inquisition, Bruno explained that his works were philosophical and in they argued only that thought should be free to investigate. Giordano Bruno spent 7 years in prison, whose dungeons were famous and feared by the Inquisition in Rome, next to the Vatican Palace. On the 4th of February 1600, he was a thin, an emaciated man, but which had not lost any of its determination, and sentence was read that day. Giordano Bruno was declared a heretic and they ordered that his books were burned in St. Peter's Square, and included in the index of banned books. On the 17th of February 1600, at 5:30 a.m. morning, Bruno was taken to the site of the execution. Some were previously executed in order to spare them from the suffering of the flames, but Bruno did not enjoy this privilege. In order to prevent him from speaking to the spectators, his tongue was paralyzed with a leather bridle, or perhaps with a nail. When he was already tied to the post, a monk bowed down and showed a crucifix, but Bruno turned his head away. The flames consumed his body and his remains were thrown into the Tiber. Models of evolution. These models focus on the change that species undergo through the generations. It takes a very long time for one species to give birth to another or to other species. So, all life on Earth comes from one last common universal ancestor that existed approximately 4,350 million years ago. The naturalists Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace proposed in 1858 that natural selection was the basic mechanism which gives rise to evolution. The evolutionary model does not only rely on the Darwin's and Wallace's theories, but also in models in genetics, biochemistry, fossil record, etc. Over the years this model has been changing, and still does so today. This is what all scientific models are like. There is a great diversity of models of reality. The mathematical models, the social ones, anthropological, etc. Reality is objective existence, all that is, whether we see it or not, whether we exist or not. The models are obtained from perceiving and walking the path of reality. It is as simple as that. And do we use models in our daily lives? At all times, in order to achieve an understanding of the world around us. For example, to find a place we use a map, which is a representation of a territory. So we know where we are in the world, where we can go, what routes we can take. The map is an instrument, a very useful tool. In ancient times, maps were precious treasures that they showed roads and maritime trade routes, strategic military points, they divided up regions delimiting borders, or possessions. They were difficult documents to produce, they were handmade and therefore very expensive. This tool gave great power to its owners because it could see more far and better than other men. The success of a journey depended on a good map or the triumph in battle. And this gave them responsibility for the life or death of people, or on the achievement of fortunes or bankruptcies. It has always been dangerous to have a faulty map. And if the model doesn't work for me, then I have to change it. We all live in the same reality, but in spite of this, we do not see or feel it completely. Because there is no reality but perceptions, and from these perceptions we make our model, which is a map that interprets the world around us. But, do we see everything? Did we get the whole picture? And our perception can have many errors because there are fantasies and desires. We have to take reality as it is. Do not alter it because the map will not be faithful and we will get lost. There are no facts, but interpretations. The fact is that this can be interpreted in several different ways, according to the lenses through which it is seen. We want to see justice where there is none. We want to see meaning, and we invent it, where there is none. So we have to change their model of reality. And we have to elaborate or find the best map that represents the real, not interpretations. Because quite simply, we cannot remove the veil that prevents us from understanding the real at all. Models of the world are tools, mere utensils such as maps, which serve a specific purpose. It is useless to use the wrong tool, would be a mistake. But apart from using the wrong utensil, we can make the mistake of misusing it in addition. It would be suicidal to consult a map of the 17th century in the 21st century. It is obvious that we will be blind when navigating or traveling on the paths of the world. All this tells us that we have to be careful with the models, insofar as they are tools. But there are those who are slaves of their models. The model is a guide, it is not something that to pay obeisance to it. Saturday, Sabbath, is a religious day of rest observed in the Jewish tradition, from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. It is an obligatory day of rest in which the Jews refrain from working. That is what their image of the world tells to them. Luke 13:10-14. On a Sabbath Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. An evil spirit had left her hunchbacked and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. But the ruler of the synagogue was angry, because Jesus healed her on the Sabbath, and said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." But Jesus' retort was, Mark 2 verse 27. Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath." With this assertion, Jesus was emphasizing that what was to be done with the Sabbath, which is, to serve the well-being and benefit of people, and not to be a burden or a source of oppression. It is clear. Models are tools, and as such they exist to be used, not to pay them obeisance or worship them. Consider the following. Would you dare to put a hammer and a screwdriver on an altar to give them all your respect? Is it possible that false models of reality are used? Evidently. Those that have been created by fantasy, such as astrology, numerology, tarot, palmistry, etc. There are several arguments why some people defend pseudoscientific or esoteric models and beliefs. These reasons may vary depending on culture and tradition, emotional comfort, sense of community and belonging to a group, distrust of science or authority, and many others. They simply don't like reality, and create their own. And this objective creates their standard, and these so twisted models of the world. They use maps of territories that have not been explored, simply, because they cannot be explored. Because they only exist in their imagination and fantasy. Is religion a tool? It is easy to answer this question, and you already know the answer. Religion is a tool that tells you where you come from, what you should do here, where you will go, why the world is the way it is. But this model has a major flaw, is a tool which is idolized, unable to change. And people never know when they are alive, if it works. Because verification occurs after death. Let us end with a question. Which is the best model of reality? Evidently, those that emerged from the meticulous exploration.
Some people who are engaged in science or those who do not renounce to accept reality. They check the maps or models of the world. And if it doesn't work, they change it for another one. This tool is not revered or idolized. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for your attention.